Special Operations, Covert Ops, Espionage, The Team House, with your hosts, Jack Murphy and David Park.
Hey folks, welcome to episode 261 of The Team House. I'm Jack Murphy here with Dave Park, and our guest on tonight's show is Alejandro Villanueva. He served in Ranger Battalion, and then he went on to serve, well, not serve, I shouldn't say, but play for the NFL as a football player. And we're really excited to have him on the show tonight. Thank you, Alejandro, for joining us.
Thank you so much. Great job with my last name. I saw you there in the moment of truth, and you delivered.
It's a step into the darkness sometimes with me. Yeah. So thank you. So Alejandro, let's start at the beginning. Tell us a little bit about like what your upbringing was like and how that eventually took you towards military service.
Okay, so I'm going to try to make it as short as possible because it does have a lot of themes that I feel very passionate about.
That's
now.
Okay.
So
go for it.
Okay, so I grew up in Rota Naval Station, and I think in the special operations world, particularly Rota is a very known place. It always goes attached with the place that I would like to get stuck on for 48 hours. There's a lot of flights that were going during the war to Afghanistan and Iraq would have a layover in Rota, and then the soldiers would be able to go outside and interact with the community and go to the beach and whatnot. And so you can imagine as a child, it almost felt like a military version of Forrest Gump, where my house was nothing but soldiers going around me everywhere, Marines going to the PX to buy dip, people running in formation, the taps going through and out of a military gate. And so I always try to tell people in the military that it was kind of like a kid, a local from Manas, a local kid who was growing outside of a U.S. base and had the privilege, I guess, or the opportunity of interacting with everybody on the base. And so for me, it was always the only thing that I knew, but I didn't realize how special they were until I got older. Like going into a bathroom and seeing all the units of the military talking smack to each other, and as they rotate and they're sitting there for 10 minutes, they're writing things on the wall. So I guess when I was a kid, service was the only way or the only thing that I could have ever aspired to be. I wanted to become a Marine because Marines use Rota more than any other branch of the service. My father was Spanish, and he was a pilot. And when they train pilots from NATO countries, they bring them to San Antonio, Meridian, and Pensacola to teach them how to fly. So when the U.S. sells a weapon system to another country, especially an ally, they also bring the pilots in and they teach them how to operate the plane. So during that training, I was born in Meridian, Mississippi. It has a naval air base in Meridian. So I was born, and that's sort of how I became a U.S. citizen. But then I grew up on a U.S. military base in Spain. So Spain was the country that my parents are from, my family's from. But I grew up inside a U.S. base. And this base is in a very historical place. Every single civilization from the Western Empire has always been in Rota for its geographical location. And I grew up listening to a lot of military history from all civilizations, from Julius Caesar to the Greeks, all the era of conquistadors in Spain, all the world wars. There was something always related to the town that I was in. And so military history was a huge theme. Being a soldier and what it meant was sort of like the only thing that I grew up listening to and hearing. And then finally the U.S. military as being the conduit for this. So watching C-17s land every hour, on the hour for 10 years of my life. There was no other option other than joining the military, I guess, is how I'm trying to frame it. It was almost like the most romanticized version of a 21st century life of a soldier. And my initial goal was to be a Marine. Like I said, I loved the culture of the Marines. I loved everything that they stood for in terms of not having any awards or patches in the uniform, and just being a Marine was that defined them. As opposed to the Army, which had a little bit more of a division in terms of the assignment that you're going to do based on just how large the branch is. And unfortunately, when I applied to go to the academies, I was colorblind, and so that left me the Army as the only choice where I would have a wide range of options as to who I was going to become as an officer. So that's sort of the quick story.
What did your father think about this, being a Spanish officer, and you joining the U.S. military? Was he kind of like, go for it, like this is your big chance, or?
No. I think you can imagine two themes in this conversation. One is being a father and having a teenage son, you know,
Sure.
and
Sure.
the issues that arise between the father and the older son, and the fact that my father was in the military, so he was always gone too. He was in the Navy too, so he would be gone for 6 months at a time. You know, you're going to buy. Right now he's in Somalia. You know, like he's all over the place all the time. So because of that, you know, because he was in the military, he also exposed me not only to being born in the U.S., but also we came back quite a. You know, my father did the Naval War College in Newport, Rhode Island, so I got to live in Rhode Island in the year 2001. Went to the World Trade Center on a staff visit in August of 2001. I got a picture with my father. It's crazy. So I think those two aspects, the fact that he exposed me constantly to the United, and then my last 2 years in high school, I went to SHAPE, Supreme Headquarters Allied Powers Europe in Belgium. And then when I was in SHAPE, I went to an American high school. So it was in this American high school that all my teachers were saying, you know, what do you realize how large you are and how easy things would be for you in the United States? It's almost like, please don't go to Europe and not play American football. You know, this is what you're meant to do. But I always felt that I wanted to be a soldier. I always felt that the action piece of, I mean, in the year I graduated from high school in 2006. So you can imagine all the movies that were coming out, you know, Black Hawk Down, you know, I just watched all those movies. And so there was a component of being a soldier that was extremely appealing to me. And so regardless of whether I would have gone to one or the other, I think the U.S. military was the one that I saw as a sure path. You know, it's like 1,000% you're going to be able to become the soldier or see it the way that you envision it. Everybody has a romanticized idea about how their service is supposed to be. So that was mine. But my father didn't, you know, at first, you know, but, you know, I made my decision. I came to this country when I was 17. I packed a bag and I said, I'm leaving, I'm doing this. And I think maybe he always thought that I would get homesick. And so part of that was my family always expected me to return, to not finish the academy, especially during the first 2 years. And that at some point I would say, okay, I miss home. I miss Spain. Let's cancel this whole journey and then go back home.
Go ahead.
You have two big themes in your life. You have the military and you have football. Was it when you were at SHAPE, going to an American high school, that you were introduced to football? Like, how was it not soccer?
Right. So soccer, this is, you know, going into a little bit of like, you know, different sports and cultures. So soccer is the only sport in Spain. Right. Meaning it's the only sport they're going to talk about in the news every day. There's no sports attached to a high school, meaning your education is completely separate from sports. So they don't make it streamlined. They don't encourage participation like in the U.S. In the U.S., you want at least everybody to have the opportunity to play a sport. In Europe, you go through club systems. So kind of like hockey in Canada, maybe if you don't start very early in soccer, you're never going to catch up with the rest of the players. And so because I was always moving around the world, I was always, you know, one place, the next. Swimming became my sport. It was always a thing that was individual, and soccer became something that I didn't really practice. So I didn't play a lot of soccer. I played rugby towards the end of my high school days, and then when I went to Belgium, I was looking for a place to play rugby. But all the American kids that saw me there, because SHAPE is such a small American community, they only had like 25 kids on the football team. So I was like, dude, we need you, please. It'll be so much fun, you know. And you know, I guess I saw football, and this is, I think, the biggest theme. I saw football as a way of making friends, as a way of understanding American culture and the environment that I was in for high school, and then as a way of also, you know, enjoy myself during the tough period of time that it is high school for any kid. So I joined the football team in Belgium. We traveled around all the bases in Germany. So we went to Ramstein, we went to Hanau, Vilsec, We went to London Central in London. We went all the way to Naples. So we were traveling. I was seeing Europe for the first time on an American football team, and that's how we travel around Europe. And that's how I got introduced to the game of football. So it was initially to get to make friends. English was, I had to speak English in the high school, and I didn't speak English very well.
Yeah.
So it was a very easy way of learning a lot of the slang, a lot of the culture, and not be so awkward when you walk up to the scene that all European kids dread of, the locker rooms on the aisles and the bullying that goes on the sides and whatnot. So football was always really kind to me in that aspect, and it's a beautiful way of being introduced to American culture, through the values of American football, for sure.
And how big were you in high school when you were playing football?
I was the same height, so I stopped growing when I was around 14 years old. And again, high school is only a period of time that is in the U.S. system. In the European system, I don't know what high school means. There's not like a little translation. So when I got to Belgium, when I got to I guess what they call 11th grade, I did 11th and 12th grade in an American high school. In 11th grade, I was 6'9", and I was probably 225 pounds, 230 maybe. And I remember when I went to West Point, I was 245 pounds. So I put on about 15 pounds of weight my last 2 years in high school.
They're making them big these days.
Yeah. No, but it's funny because now thinking, in the NFL, like if you're 6'9" and you weigh 225, you're a basketball player. He doesn't know you can play football. 225 that tall. It's crazy. You got to be crazy.
Yeah. Talk to us a little bit about that application process to go to military academy, because yes, you're an American citizen, but culturally you're very European. What was sort of that process like to get you over here?
Right. So I think the picture that this is hilarious. So my first day in high school at Shape American High School, my father was working. So because it's a NATO headquarters, so they assemble teams or units or whatever it might be called, using officers from different countries. So my father's working for a colonel in the U.S. Army. And then when he introduces himself, before we all showed up, during the move, he says, "Oh, you got any kids?" Typical conversation that you make with a coworker from a different country. "You got any kids?" "Oh, yeah, I got 4 kids. My oldest son is going to enter high school or whatever." And he's like, "Oh, yeah. Does he play any sports?" "Well, yeah, well, he's very tall, very large, but he doesn't like to play any sports, or he likes to swim, whatnot." "Well, I got a son. There's also playing sports. He's going to the same high school. Why don't you put him into American football?" And then when they saw me play, then he was telling my dad to say, "Apply to University of Florida, go to Stanford, go to whatever university you can get into. Your kid can get in if you go through the process of the NCAA and playing American football." And so that's kind of how I was introduced to playing football, just to my dad's boss son, who was in my class, and he was asking me to join the team because the world would open to me like an oyster if I decided to give it a shot. And I think what I didn't believe is the fact that you needed to be such an expert to play football. Football just requires you to run into a wall 80 times and ask for some more. And I think there's no other sport other than maybe fighting that just requires that simplicity.
What caused you to decide to go to a service academy instead of either just enlisting or going to a regular college and going the ROTC route?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. I think what really scared me was the fact that so in Europe, the biggest issue that you have when you grow up in Europe is unemployment. Mm-hmm. So unemployment was 40% in my hometown. So if you look at the province where Rota Naval Station is located, it's in southern Spain. It's right next. I'm 5 miles away from Africa, in the Strait of Gibraltar. But unemployment is 40%. So when you graduate from college, you have to sort of become an intern for many years, and you have to live with your parents. So you achieve economic independence very, very late in life. The sure bet of having a job after college and having the streamlined academy life was extremely appealing. There was very little room for error. I was basically signing up to receive a salary after an education. So everything was done for me. I just couldn't go out on the weekends. You know what I mean? That's the only thing that I had to sign. Right. And maybe in the long term, it was the right decision to not fall prey of the American Pie movies that I had in my head already of what college is like and whatnot.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, you get to West Point. I don't think it was like Animal House or some of the American. Tell us about getting there. You said you were 17, packed your bags, and went. What was it like landing at the military academy?
Well, I landed in Newark. And then I took a taxi, a yellow taxi, all the way to West Point, and that's how I started my journey. So it's kind of crazy because you're landing in Newark and you see the Statue of Liberty, and then you see Ellis Island, and you're like, well, I guess I'm doing a version of that, but like in 2006, I'm coming here, with my dreams, and this is what it looks like, and so it almost feels like as soon as you land in America, it's like a movie starts on you. It's like you become a movie, and now you're completely by yourself, and you have to decide, which way you're going to go in so many different directions. Which crowd are you going to hang out with, in the mess hall? What sort of people are you going to hang out at night when you have leave and whatnot? So it was a very surreal moment. Landing in New York, seeing the smells of New York City, the people, the pace, the activity, and then start slowly going up. Up the Hudson, into the mountains, into the seclusion, almost like you do get that feeling of the British kid who's being dropped off at boarding school, when he's 6 years old and he sees the bricks and he's like, no, I do. The gates close behind you, you're like, oh, you get a little bit of both on the same day.
Yeah. And so when you got to the academy, did they know that you could play football? Did you apply for like a football, was that part of it, or did you just decide I'm going to the academy and then I'll raise my hand for football too?
No. So I wanted to serve. I was very enticed by the engineering degree. I was very enticed by the fact that I was going to make, I think it was like, $2,500 a month, after I graduated. I was very enticed by the fact that I would have a job. So those were the things that I was focused on. I was not going to the academy to play football. When I got to the academy, then I realized that it would be it would be very, very useful to play football as I learned what it's like to deal with someone from Texas or someone from the South, someone from California. I mean, it's not easy to get all the personalities of the United States all at once, all in the same place. If you come to the U.S. and you go to whatever state college in South Carolina, everybody from that college is going to be from South Carolina. So they're all going to act sort of the same way. It's very easy to interact, learn how you play the game in this little school, and then move forward. But when you go out to the academy and it's everybody from everywhere, then it's a little bit overwhelming. And football is a place where you can become friends with people. And so I walked onto the football team, but I already talked to the football team during my visit. And the team said, you're going to get into the academy, due to your application. We'll let you walk into the football team during the summer, and then you can try it out, see if you like it. But it was American football requires an American to play it. And I mean this from the sense that I've seen freak athletes coming from Africa, for example. They do programs where they bring insane athletes, but they don't have that. They don't have that ability to see how American football is supposed to be played. I did not have that mentality when I came into the United States. When people start screaming and yelling at practice and pitting people against each other, and there's so much drama and tension on every single day of practice, I said, well, I thought we were supposed to play a game here and have fun. How is there so many egos in football and people are getting in fights every day, and it's almost like a brawl. I was like, I came here to make friends. So I didn't do the adjustment very well in my first 2 years, and I was always, more enamored with the weight room and working out and getting protein shakes after, and hanging out with my friends after practice. That's what I like to do when I first showed up to the team.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the plebe year isn't fun for anybody, right?
Yeah, I guess you have to create the story that things like Ranger School, SF, whatever they might be, selection, they're very difficult, and they're a suck fest in order for you to get mentally prepared to expect the worst and then hope for the best. Right. But you don't know anything else. You don't know whether it's hard or difficult.
Yeah.
You're just going through it. You're like, well, I guess, I don't, but academically was not as challenging for me. culturally, it was very fun to get to know the people from different places and have my own independence. They give you a laptop, and you're like, "Wow, my laptop! I don't have to share with my dad and my brothers, you know, and I can be in my room and I can have a cell phone. That's crazy. I got my own cell phone. I mean, this is when cell phones were not very popular, you know. So I saw it as a growing up period. Plebe year is just a adaptation year, you know.
Yeah.
But I guess looking back, it's not the hardest for sure.
And then as you're going through the academy, because do you get a choice in the branch you go to? Do you get to sort of pivot for that? And did you decide on infantry? Like, what was it that drew you to that?
Right. So when you go to the academy, they rank you on, they evaluate you on everything that you do all 4 years. So if you exams, military grade, physical grade, you do an APFT, they give you a grade that counts towards your physical grade, and so you have a class rank, and so they put you in order. OML, is that was the term, right? OML,
yeah.
OML list. Yeah, they put you on OML list, you know, 1 to 1,000 or however many cadets you have in the year, and then it's the draft. Then they say, okay, number 1, you pick your choice. Number 2, you pick your choice. Number 3, you pick your choice. And I think I wanted to go to the academy more than I was worth it of going to the academy. I feel that when I went to the academy and I saw what it took to be a cadet and the things that they were teaching, I didn't feel like I was worthy to be in the academy. I didn't feel like I was one of those perfect students who did nothing. You know, I struggle tremendously with simple concepts like the honor code and the fact of loyalty. Like I gotta rat it on my roommate, you know, for lying on taking a shower, or, you know, these crazy hypotheticals. So I wasn't the sure cadet who's ranked top of the class, who's the teacher's pet on everything. I got in trouble a little bit here and there. You know, I was hanging out with the football team. I was more curious than anything. So I think one of the ways that I felt I would overcompensate for not being worthy enough, in my opinion, was to say, okay, but I'll give you infantry. I'll give you everything. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not. This is not. You know, I'm fully committed to being the best version of myself. I wish I would have felt that I was the typical cadet that shows up at the academy. But I guess in the end, we all make up what is an infantry officer or an officer in the Army. And I think another concept or another theme was the fact that, you know, because you're competing all the time in an alpha male world, when you're listening to the stories of the NCOs when they come to train you, and they all have their CIBs, the largest award that there is in the military, for a reason, you know. I think those things start getting into your head a little bit as well.
Yeah.
And you say, no, I gotta go infantry. You know, infantry's that's where all the top dogs in the class. It's like Top Gun, but in the Army version. You know, that's where they're all going. I gotta go in there too. I gotta get in the mix. You know, I gotta find out what the PAX chart is for the deployment schedule, and I gotta get going with this. You know, this is how the alpha males at West Point were behaving all at the same time when it came down to branching. So I think those two things, you know, led me into the infantry branch.
And you were also, though, coming into your own in football. You know, like your senior year, you were voted team captain, right? When did you start thinking that football was also a career that you could pursue?
I never thought it was a career that I could pursue because I was so locked into the deployment thing. I was, you know, for me, it was the opposite. And I guess to give a context, everybody at West Point was like this. It wasn't just, you know, the ones and twosies. You know, everybody just wanted to be like, dude, we can't miss on a deployment. The deployment fever, the war tourism, whatever you want to call it. Right. That was very, very, very vivid. You know, you get people, the mess hall stacked with awards, and I mean, you know what it feels like when you just sleeves on your arms and you have nothing, and you just feel so inferior. That's all that stuff. You know, is part of what goes into it. So, yeah, the football was never even a thought. Football was like, I can't miss on a deployment. It's 2010. We got 2 conflicts. Iraq is shutting down. You know, we got to get into Afghanistan. What's the unit that's going there? 10th Mount. We got to get into 10th Mount. You know what I mean? Like, let's go. Never ever did I think that I would trade in a deployment for a chance to play in the NFL. You know, I thought that I was born to do this, since I was a kid. My dream would have been to stop it. I mean, that would have been like the movie one. You just stop in Rhoda, say goodbye to my mama, she's crying, take off in the C-17, go to war. That would have been like, oh wow, But there was no way that I would ever change the opportunity to deploy with the infantry in 2010 over playing in the NFL.
And I was talking to someone just recently, actually, who was telling me, and maybe you know more. I'm sure you know more than I do, that West Point will now let a student, when they graduate, if they have an offer from the NFL, to go and play, and then afterwards come and serve their mandatory, minimum military time that they owe after, graduating. But it sounds like for you and your peers, it was like not even a question. Like, we're just going into this.
Yeah, it wasn't. No, you have to serve at least 2 years. The policy when I was playing, it was 2 years.
Yeah.
And so after I got done with my first deployment is when the first chance that I had to try out, and I tried out for the Bears. So after 2 years, I did try to go to the NFL. After I got done with the deployment, I was like, okay, yeah, there's too much to process. Either I'm back on deployments all the time with Ranger Regiment or SF, or there's no way that I can go back to the regular Army and not do deployments. Right. Those two, I did not like the garrison Army life.
Right.
I knew that I was not made for that, and so I tried out for the NFL after 2 years. But I think now everybody can go if you have an offer. I think so.
So you graduated, you went to Airborne and Ranger School, and then you got assigned 10th Mountain. And then did you guys deploy pretty quickly after you got there?
So that's the reason why. I looked at the PAX chart and I said, okay, I'm waiving my leave after the academy. No leave. I can't have a month to spare. I got to beat everybody to the 10th Mountain because they give out platoons as the brigade combat team is getting ready to deploy.
Yeah.
So you want to be a platoon leader going into the deployment. You don't want to be in staff. Everybody was like, no, we got to get there as soon as possible. I didn't go to airborne school when I was at the academy because I was playing football. So I had to get rid of airborne school. And so I was thinking about failing the push-ups so that I could save a month to show up because the unit was leaving. I started IBOLIC in Fort Benning in June. I graduated in May. I started in June. And then I finished in November. And then the next week I went to Ranger School. I had to go straight through because we had the Christmas exodus. Finished Ranger School. That same Friday graduation, I went to the Airborne School in processing. Finished Airborne School. And that same week, I hate to say this now, I was like signing the veterinarian. I was out processing Fort Benning they were like minimum 5 days. I was like, we're going to make it in 2. In 2 days, I'm going up to Fort Drum. And so I went to Fort Drum, and then a week later, I was deployed. So it was a very, very, very quick time. But if I had missed that,
right,
then I would have gone they would have sent me midway through the deployment, and I would have only got to do 6 months. So it was a gamble. I mean, you're gambling. You're saying, okay, you can go to 82nd, you can go to 101st, you can go to 10th Mountain. Those are the 3 divisions that are going to be deploying constantly all the time. Which one you want to go to? 1st Brigade, 101 just got back. 4th Brigade is there now. So you wanted to avoid Iraq as much as you can because Iraq, you were just shutting down bases. So you didn't want to go to Iraq. So it was almost like you're playing craps and you're just at the table going like, okay, which one's going to get me to the promised land? And the risk with 10th Mountain was that it was 3rd Brigade that was leaving, but it was a very tight window for me to be able to make it at the beginning of the deployment.
Wow.
So you hit the ground at Fort Drum, get deployed to Afghanistan. I mean, did you take a platoon immediately?
No, I missed it. I missed it by a week. I missed it by a week, and I was so depressed. I was like, oh my God, there's no way. I'm sitting at the talk, and I'm seeing all the lieutenant buddies all get their CIBs, all get into firefights all the time. And I'm like, oh no, why me? Why me? But it's almost like when you're a backup also on the football team, you don't realize how quickly things happen, and then all of a sudden, a month into the deployment, platoon leaders are getting hurt, killed, and so I went in as a replacement for one of the platoon leaders who lost his leg, and so I was like, okay, here we go, we just lost a PL in a mission, and now you're the new guy, start, and then I did the whole deployment with him.
So, man, I mean, that's also like a tremendous responsibility. You fought really hard to get there, but I mean, now you're the guy. Right, and everyone's looking to you for answers. I mean, what was that like to be taking a platoon in combat?
I mean, here's the thing, and we could talk about this forever. One of the greatest themes in the military, and maybe I have a short. I would say I'll say this. I'll frame it to company command and below. One of the biggest themes is the relationship between the NCO and the officer. That is like you can write books. mommy and daddy are fighting, whatever. There's billions of things that people say in the platoons. And especially in Ranger Regiment. Ranger Regiment is another level of psychoanalysis into relationships between two grown men, and that is it's krazy. So two things. One is when you go to West Point, you automatically, especially in the 2000, you have a reputation that you're a ring knocker,
Right.
you're a West Point. And so your reputation is automatically going to be, you better be the best at everything. You better smoke PT. You better, because if not, you're just like every other West Point. You're going to get in trouble. You just have a bullseye behind you, and you have people will always make a comment when you're from West Point. Always not in a good way. Never in a good way. They're making a comment about you being a West Pointer. And I think it's a good thing. I think it holds West Pointers accountable to always say, you cannot leave a bad reputation. So I think it's a good thing that the Army does that for sure. But then how do you come in as a 21-year-old West Pointer? So already people are like, oh yeah, this guy's going to reinvent the wheel now when he shows up.
Right.
And then you're facing 40-year-old men with 4 kids, that are on their 7th deployment.
Right.
You're showing up, and then you have to make it work from a position where you don't know. So that was the challenge. The challenge is how can you influence, how can you lead if you don't know anything and you're relying exclusively on your NCOs. And then they have to trust you, they have to like you. It's not impossible. You just can't do things that are obvious, and you have to be genuine. And I think it's just a test of show these grown men that you're a good dude. And so that was the extent of the challenge. You're not afraid. You're not gonna. Obviously, maybe I overdid it a little bit. Never put your men in a position where that you wouldn't do yourself. You know what I mean? So then I was one of those platoon leaders that was always up front. Trying to show people that we were in this together. But the experience, because I had amazing NCOs and amazing soldiers, was incredible. So all I can remember was nothing but horror stories from my peers, whereas in my platoon, I had squad leaders that were insane, amazing. They would draw the route, never say no. Just incredible overall experience with 10th Mountain.
And what was it was an active tour for you guys. You got a Bronze Star with the V device. What was it like when you were in your first troops in contact, and growing up in Rota, Spain, watching all these movies, and now you're here, you're in it, and you're leading men?
Oh my God, the first 19 May 2011. I still remember, it was crazy. It was you have a movie in your head as to who you're going to become and who you're going to be. Just like I told you earlier, it's almost like you have this destiny. Lieutenant Dan. You have this Lieutenant Dan in you, and then all of a sudden, I was there for maybe 2-3 weeks, and then it was I felt like it was like the movies from Vietnam. Like, where's Charlie? We're looking for Charlie. We're looking for Charlie. And you're just looking for the Taliban, but the Taliban pick their fights. It's not like every day you're getting into a firefight.
Right.
It's that that you just have to be in the AO, and then you have to sort of start dancing ball with the insurgents and see where are you going to go, what are they going to do, what are your patterns of life. And I remember the first time that we were ambushed, everything in Kandahar and around the grape fields always happened, and you would always hear about this. They come from behind a wall and they try to spray you and they try to draw you into an ID, or they try to draw you into an area where you can create a mass count. And it's very easy for them because they have escape routes. So it's very, very difficult to cut them off or corner them off. And there's usually 2 or 3. You're not fighting more than 2 or 3 young kids with a couple buckets of bullets and a couple AKs, and they're just sitting picks around you. And so when we started getting the first time that we started hearing the cracking of an AK and the cracking in the sky, everybody hits down. And then you start going through, almost like automatically, you start going through the motions of all the training that you receive. So you say, okay, we're taking contact, suppress by fire. When everybody get in line, assess the situation, and try to get on the radio. None of the radios are going to work. So you got to go, side to side. And then you say, okay, we're going to flank. We're going to flank. This is Battle Drill 1 Alpha. React to contact. We're flanking. So you gather the element and you start going behind. And you're going, oh my God, I'm doing this. This is for real life. This is crazy. But then it's a nothing. You just completely did a training that was, no, they just want to shoot a couple pop shots, from the distance to see what you're doing, and then they're gonna take off.
Yeah.
And then I'm out there trying to flank, trying to do the shift to fire, and you're like, what am I doing? This makes no sense. I just feel like it was almost the wrong type of train. We train but using principles. When I first got into West Point, it was all Vietnam. Vietnam was everything. Patrol bases, river crossings. Everything was about smells, like stopping, and listening. When you go into urban combat, there's no need to stop and listen to things. It's loud everywhere. And there's radios and there's Afghans talking the whole time. So I could tell that a lot of the tactics that you use the first time, especially during training, were a little bit behind, and they were not the same tactics and the same training environment that you would do towards the later end. When we're doing platoon live fires, we're doing against buildings now, because you want to go from building to building. That's what you want to learn how to do. You want to go building to building. You don't want to clear large areas in the open. Where are you ever going to do a large area in the open assault? Where you're flanking in the open. That makes no sense. You always use cover. when you're in Afghanistan. And so from there you learn. You say, okay, we're not going to do Battle Drill 1 Alpha anymore. We're going to try to use these 60 mil mortars that we have here. They seem like a great tactic. You know what I mean? We can start carrying a lot of rounds with us, and then we just get down and we start lobbing mortars. And then if we do see some more activity, then we can bring the M14. And then all of a sudden, we start bringing different weapons. We start different SOPs, and we become a lot more effective. And so now we start using compounds to draw fire, so we can get into good fighting positions. We're not fighting in the open in the great fields anymore. So it was a very sort of silly situation the first time, because I felt that it was a lot more about quote unquote popping your cherry, you know what I mean, and then just moving on with life. So okay, I got it off. Yeah, sure. I've seen. You almost feel like you're a man now, and then you just continue on. Now it's about learning, from your mistakes and be very thankful that it was a silly situation that you were so angst about, and now you can move on and think clearly. Because if it had been something ugly, then you would have been with 3 casualties flanking the enemy, and now you have to bring a helicopter, and now it's a mess. Now you could potentially hurt a lot more people by trying to not think when you're supposed to be thinking.
Right. And when you're when you are a young officer in that situation, in this kind of new environment, how important are your NCOs who have had multiple combat tours? How important are they to you in those moments?
Oh, they're amazing. I mean, but the problem is that we started doing patrols in a way that we would leave 2 squads back, and we would patrol with 2 squads, because we had to bring an element from the ANA. So, and it was all about patrolling. So patrolling was very physically demanding. So we would have two squads, and then we would go out with a platoon of Afghans, and we would go out on missions, and we would rotate. So when you were with 2 squad leaders that were very experienced and they knew what to do, then you almost kind of get next to them, you know what I mean? And you make sure that the only person you can listen to on the radio is him, and it's very easy to maneuver. But a lot of times, the squad leaders will come from different units. So one squad leader will come from a mechanized unit, and he had a deployment out in RC East that was all mounted. And then you had another, NCO who was from Iraq only. So you only had urban warfare. So sometimes it was tricky, because everybody had to be on the same page. Right. And in the beginning of the deployment, it was always a lot of questions as to how do we all operate. And for me, obviously, to learn, because I don't know. I just know the handbook. I know the handbook. It says right here, I got a flank. You know what I mean? Right. I don't know that there's other options that you can do when you get into these situations.
Yeah. Do you want to talk at all about the operation where you won the Bronze Star with V device? Or I know that some people aren't super excited about talking about awards. So
yeah, that's what I got out of that award. I got out of that award that awards are always very subjective and it's a very interesting theme in the military. How do you give an award in the regular Army versus the Ranger Regiment? Ranger Regiment almost felt like it was a candy parade. In the military, in the regular Army, it was also very subjective. Some units, the pushing, what awards get approved, what don't get approved. But I think that in the end, they help. The only objective is to help morale. So you guys took a lot of casualties in this mission, but you guys also fought bravely, and then we're going to give a couple of awards to those. So I think it was just for the morale. Yeah. But I think in terms of actions, you can almost, if you were to freeze moments, if you were to like GoPro every single soldier from every single battalion, every deployment, you would get footage of their actions that are unbelievable. And because one platoon is just getting smashed every single day, and they're just in these situations constantly all the time, is not going to compare with one unit that has not seen any action. One day sees the action, it's almost like people can't stop talking about it. And it's like, oh my God, I remember when I saw this or when I saw that. So I got that impression from awards.
Yeah.
And then when I was awarded that award, I really didn't know how to feel about it. I almost feel like you win in a lottery, like somebody taps you on the shoulder, I'm going to put you in for an award, and you're like, oh, okay. You're not going to say, you don't know what it is. You don't know those awards. You never stop to think about awards ever in these situations.
It's
you
tough
can't chase them.
A lot of those awards come about because like something bad happened that day, right?
Right. So that's why I was like, "What, you give me an award for somebody in my platoon dying and getting killed?" Like, geez, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
it's hard. It's hard. It's not what you imagine it to be.
Right.
You want to be the guy from Okinawa who's saving thousands of bodies. You know what I mean? Or those awards are very, very difficult.
Like Audie Murphy, like taking on an entire German company or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, those were like, yeah, dude, that's awesome. You're happy about it. You know what I mean? You're a great example. So for sure.
So how long were you a PL when you were with 10th Mountain?
I was a platoon leader the entire year.
Okay.
So I was a platoon leader. So I got there. I was a PL for 13, 14 months, and then I rotated out, and then I became an XO. And I said, okay, what else is out? Let's skip this XO thing. There's got to be another area for me out here. You know what I mean? There's no way. And so the only two options were SF or Ranger Regiment. And so it was almost like the Harry Potter where they put the helmet on top of you and they decide whether you're SF or Ranger Regiment. And I think maybe I anticipated, from the I spoke a lot of languages, so I always thought that would be a huge asset in the SF world. If I could end up in the 7th group and I'm an officer that speaks Spanish, that automatically is a massive asset piece regardless. There's no way they're gonna see that in the training and be like, okay, we're gonna make it easy for this guy. You know what I mean? So, but I always felt that in the Ranger culture around those years, being big, like being like strong in the weight room was like it was a thing, you know.
For sure.
And I was getting after in the weight room. I was into it, and so I started really getting into the fitness aspect of the Army, and I thought that the Army Rangers would be a more fun and competitive environment from that aspect, knowing that both would be incredible challenges. Knowing that whether you're operating with small elements and you're speaking different languages and you're more flexible, or you're in the Roman Legion Ranger Regiment, shaved every single day, screaming the Ranger Creed every morning. I think those would be very, very cool environments either way.
So talk to us about going to RASP as what are you, a second lieutenant by now?
I was a first lieutenant when I went to RASP.
Lieutenant. Okay.
I've never thought about it because nobody really has asked me, obviously in the media ever, about what it's like to go to RASP. But it's very similar, oddly, to the Pro Bowl. Very, very similar to the Pro Bowl, in the sense that you walk in, and then that you're competing, with a very small group of people that are all in the same room, and you're friends with each other because you have to be friends. You're going through a course together, but the attrition rate is going to be there as well, and so you're becoming friends with people that are also you're competing against. And so everybody, especially in the man world, everybody becomes very, it's a little bit of they made you in RASP, they made you put rank everybody in your group and then put comments next to it. So it becomes a little bit personal even, in these environments. And you're also dealing with NCOs that are already in the unit, and you're dealing with brand new second lieutenants, company commanders that want to come in as well, people that have had experience in the Ranger Regiment, people that have not had experience. And so I fell under the category of I don't have experience and I'm super big and tall, which is always going to put a thing on you, and your personality is going to be a lot different from the rest. And so RASP was a very, very interesting experience. I had a lot of fun. I felt like physically I could compete, and I could also pass all the testing, and I was a very strong swimmer. So RASP is mainly a physical assessment in many ways. And I feel like I did very well in the ruck march. So from that aspect, I feel safe. And then, the other more difficult tests during RASP I felt like I was doing the best thing that I could genuinely, in terms of my cognitive abilities, especially my personality, so I talk a lot. I use my hands all the time when I'm talking. Maybe I'm agnostic. Maybe I say funny things. That pisses off certain people. I would try to find, ways to connect with everybody and just show that I'm a good teammate all around and play the part. And so it was a very interesting experience from the standpoint of, being around straight up alpha males competing in a way that is not necessarily you punching each other, but next to each other doing tests and running, and then at the end of the day, sort of seeing who made it through.
Yeah, they're also looking at like how personable are you, how extroverted are you, your ability to lead, those types of things.
Right, exactly. Yeah, so it was. Do you feel like you're being like one of those dog shows, where they just holding your head and saying, "Okay, contestant number 3, we got Villanueva. Come on, Villanueva. Give us a brief." I remember that was part of the board. It's like, give us a brief on something. Start talking. And you're like, "Oh, okay."
So now you graduate. You were 2nd Ranger Battalion, right?
1st Ranger Battalion.
First, I'm sorry. So you get assigned to 175. What's it like taking a platoon in 175?
I mean, it's everything that I told you about the Army, the relationship with, you don't know anything. You're going into a different. That time's a bazillion, because these guys have been in Ranger Regiment their whole careers now. They only know full go all the time. They only know perfection all the time. Now there's no slackers. You can't hide yourself with anybody. You can't. There's no relaxing in Ranger Regiment, and so that was even a lot more pressure. Now thinking back, because the how quickly lieutenants get fired. What's even now is the theme is that you might take a platoon, but you might get fired the week after. Like, geez, you make one mistake, and the NCO has a lot more power, way more power. The NCO, the platoon sergeant is the guy. And then you have the company commander who's also a guy. And then so you're like, okay, so where am I? Who am I? You're like, what is my role? Thankfully for me, I had a platoon sergeant, Sergeant First Class Donaldson, who was from the 82nd, and he was from North Carolina, and he was very, very small and scrawny, and I was huge next to him, and we would work out together, and it became like everybody in Ranger Regiment is always trying to be, square jaws, trying to look like the beret has to be perfect, covering your half eye, the uniform has to be perfect. That's what Ranger. And then you have me and him walking around laughing, with massive dips in our mouths, like, So it was a very we were a very personable couple, and then we had a lot of pride in what we did. So from a personality standpoint, when Ranger Regiment matches you with your platoon sergeant, they just say like, okay, Villanueva, we're going to match you up with that match was like almost made in heaven. It was like, okay, yeah, this is a perfect match. These two are going to get along. It's an amazing platoon. They have incredible NCOs. And so for me, even though I knew it was very difficult, it was very, very fun, because my guys, I hate to use the term my guys. The guys that I was with were phenomenal, and they were very, very, very fun. And we got a chance to deploy together as well. And then we got a chance to be in Savannah by ourselves. And so it was a magical experience. I could have not asked for a better experience in 1st Ranger Battalion.
And so you deployed 1 or 2 more times with Ranger Battalion.
I deployed twice. One deployment, I was on staff, and it was a very interesting deployment. I was on the JOC, so I was the I guess I don't know if I'm not allowed to say that. Am I allowed to say what I was? You guys probably know more about.
If you don't feel comfortable, you don't have to worry about it.
No, you don't have to say it. It's staff.
I'm just trying to play by the rules. I don't know. But I guess the war is over. So anyway, I was on staff in what's the name of the I forgot about the Camp Alpha. I was at Camp Alpha. So I was at Camp Alpha. Very interesting deployment. I remember I saw a plane crash during that deployment, a 747 that was a contractor taking off to try to see how they can get out the MRAPs out of Afghanistan on a 747.
Oh, I remember that, and it broke loose inside the fuselage and came down like belly on Bagram.
Yes. Yeah, so I was there. I was at Alpha, and then very interesting deployment as well, to see sort of the behind the scenes and see the big brains of the of the war, especially the kinetic strikes. That was becoming a huge thing, and so I had to be up for all of them, and I had to sort of be there, with Game of Thrones minimized on the corner and just
Right.
kind of sitting, sitting for hours until the target would go outside into the green zone. It was a very interesting. Not now looking back, it was amazing. I got a chance to hang out with people from all the units. You know what I mean? So I was like, wow, that's amazing. All the different JSOC units. Getting to know personally. It's kind of like The Office. So they had a barbecue shack. I remember they had a barbecue shack at Bagram, and I went out with a bunch of guys from the unit, and I was kind of like, trying to like puff up myself, and everybody's so chill,
Right.
and I was just so. And so I ate 53 ribs. I had 53 ribs at Bagram, and the guys were like, "What is crazy?" I was competing with somebody in the chow hall. So it was a cool experience to have being on the COP, my first deployment, being out in the middle of nowhere with just kind of with the Afghans, sitting in a tiny base, to now being on a big base where I could fly out to different COPs if they had like a staff ride or whatever, where I could go to Camp Vance and I could eat with the SF, the amazing cuisine that they had at the SF compound. Borrow a car, go work out at Murphy's gym, every single day. So it was a very cool experience. And then my second time, I went to Camp Dalkey and Phop Shank.
And
Go ahead.
No, were you there as a PL, or were you there?
I was there as a PL for Camp Dalkey in Logar.
And how was it different now, being a PL in Ranger Battalion compared to being a PL in the
Bunch of
82nd?
wound up dudes.
Or, 10th Mountain.
Yeah, so amazing question. The biggest difference that I found is that I did not need an interpreter in Ranger Regiment. Meaning, when I was in the regular Army, you had to have an interpreter, and the main focus every single day was people from the village. I got to go see this Haji right here, and I got to ask him. Everything was about gathering information or talking to the village elders. I mean, you were in a reconstruction. We're not nation building. Yeah, we're nation building. I was
Right.
a State Department, police officer in a village, and I had to execute all these projects. We had to give vaccinations to the goats. We had to remove marijuana fields because we're trying to cut off funding from the Taliban. We had to make wells. And in the middle of these missions, then we would get shot at, and then we would react. But it became to a point where, I would almost be talking to the interpreter as I was going down the whole time, prepping ourselves for this, and constantly speaking to an Afghan. So I was always constantly speaking to an Afghan all the time. And then the Ranger Regiment, there's, you don't have to worry about an interpreter at all. It's kill capture. This is you going out, you going on target, and you worry about just moving pieces and controlling assets. You're always going to have assets. You never had assets in the regular Army, so you never have to worry about being on company fires or switching your radio. So there were definitely a lot of changes from the way that you conduct the mission. Now, in the regular Army, I would gather the platoon or the two squads that were going on a mission, and then as we were smoking a cigarette, we would just talk about the route that we were going to go into the village. What is it that we're going to do? We would do a couple of quick checks to make sure that we had equipment. I would put a water bottle in my pocket, and then we'd go out on a mission. And now, in the Ranger Regiment, I'm cramming a PowerPoint. All the slides have to be 2 hours before you take off. You got to brief the battalion commander. It's a lot more formal. So definitely completely different environment. The Army is a lot better, it's a lot funner. Is it maybe a little more boring and not as exciting, but it's definitely a very enjoyable. I mean, both of them have incredibly rewarding parts of it, but you feel like you're working for Goldman Sachs when you're in the Ranger Regiment. You're sleeping 3-4 hours a night, and you're just constantly on the go, constantly on the computer, and so it was more investment banking, less hanging out with the bros out there with some influence.
Yeah. And also, you like you mentioned, you had assets, like plenty of assets when you were with the regiment compared to when you were going out with 10th Mountain.
Right. Yeah, the assets thing is key. I mean, you don't have to do land nav anymore. You just sparkle the building. There it is.
Yeah.
I get a lot. That's where we're going.
Yeah. So you did 2 deployments. When did you start looking at leaving the military?
When I got back from my last deployment, it was time for me to rotate out of Ranger Regiment. So I spent 2.5 years in Ranger Regiment, and so for the officers, you have to go into the regular Army, and then you have to try to go into Ranger Regiment, but then you have to go back into the Army, and then you have to go back into Ranger Regiment.
So you'd have to go back into the regular Army and take like an XO position or a company command.
Right. You go back into the regular Army, you do your captain's career course, you do your staff time, and then you hope to get a company command time. So when I got back, I called HRC, and the Army was going through the BRAC movement. So each brigade combat team, each division was getting rid of one brigade combat team. So if they have 4, now they were going down to 3. So when they did that, there was an excess of officers because now you have, you don't have enough platoons or positions, and now all the timelines kind of get crunched in order to fit this massive sort of
implosion
group of extra officers.
Yeah.
Right. So when I talked to HRC, they said, well, as an infantry officer, you have to go, the Army tries to make you go light and then heavy, and then heavy as in light infantry, heavy infantry. So you have to go into a heavy unit. Right. They want to make sure that you see both. That you see mechanized infantry, that you see light infantry. So because I did light infantry, I had to go into heavy infantry. So they gave me 2 options. They gave me Lewis and Fort Hood. And I said, no way. I got to be in a vehicle. I had never been in a vehicle. Maybe I got into a Max Pro, 10 times, the whole time I was in the Army. I was always dismounted, always.
Yeah.
And so for me, man, I got to be in a vehicle now. And then I got to wait 6 months of Fort Benning. And then I got to go captain's career course. And then I got to wait 18 months in staff. And then I'm only going to be company commander for 1 year in Fort Hood or Lewis, definitely not deployed. Neither of those units are going to deploy. So all I'm going to be doing is inventories. I'm going to be doing inventories, and I'm going to be trying to figure out. I'm going to be staring at soldiers that don't know kind of what we're going to do because everybody's so trained to deploy constantly all the time, and the deployments were slowing down. So that part of me I was very turned off by the idea of going and being a heavy infantry mechanizer, and I've regretted it many, many times. Looking back, but I don't want to be moving around and trying to figure it out and wait for the next opportunity. So very, very quickly, I was at St. Patrick's Parade in Savannah, Georgia, mm-hmm. and I found one of my teammates from West Point who was in the NFL because he had tried out after 2 years, and he said they have this program called Regional Combine. If you go there and you do a couple of events, then maybe you have a chance to go into the NFL. So I tried to do it just before I would, get out of the Army to make sure to see if I could do it. And then if not, evaluate what my options were, because getting out after 5 years, you got to start from zero again. You don't have that much experience where you're going to jump, everybody else is coming out of college. You're kind of competing with people that are coming out of college as well a little bit. And so that's when I decided that I would maybe try out to go to the NFL as the 1st Ranger Battalion was on leave. I went out to Georgia and I did a combine event thing, and then that led to an offer from Philadelphia, and so that's when I started the separation process. But always regretting leaving the Ranger Regiment, because I had to tell myself that even if I'd have stayed, I would have to leave the Ranger Regiment. Even if I'd have said, okay, I'm not going to the NFL, the Ranger Regiment would have kicked me out regardless. And there wouldn't be no guarantee of me coming back. So
that's such an interesting dichotomy there, because these are 2 dreams taking place at the same time, right? And they're both at very elite levels.
Yeah, for sure. But I wouldn't say that they were dreams. I don't think in terms of dreams. I never dreamed. I never dreamed that I was going to be in the Ranger Regiment. I never dreamed that I was going to play in the NFL. It was strictly economical decisions. What am I going to do when I get out of the Army? The same group of people that wanted to go infantry at the 5-year mark also wanted to get their MBAs from a top school. So getting an MBA, which is the silliest thing in the universe. You know what I mean? MBA, I hate MBAs. The worst. You know what I mean? You can learn everything on YouTube. You know what I mean? MBAs. But I wanted to get my MBA, so I was like, I got to get my MBA. It's $200,000. How are you going to pay for it? I don't have money. So well, maybe if I go to the NFL and I get 1 year's salary, then maybe I can pay for the MBA.
Yeah.
And so I was always comparing myself with my teammates, my classmates from West Point. That's who was the driving force behind a lot of the decisions that I was making. And so, and it's funny that now I think about, sort of these institutions, kind of like Harvard, when you have small classes and you kind of know your classmates, there's so much competition internally between the classmates to put yourself in a better position, because that's all you used to do at West Point.
Yeah.
And so getting my MBA, getting out, getting a corporate job, whatever the next thing was, whatever the next thing was it was supposed to be for a typical West Point graduate from 2010 who did 5 years. That's what I was willing to do.
Yeah.
But I wanted to see if I could pay for it by playing in the NFL for 1 year, just 1 year. That's all I wanted.
Now you're are you around 27 at this 26, 27 at this time?
26, yeah, 26.
Is that I don't know? Is that old to be starting in the NFL?
Super old. Not. It was as stupid as this. Looking back, it was a lot of. I felt like I was. I was delusional. I just what was I thinking? Maybe, I have a lot of confidence in my abilities. I do feel that. In terms of athletically, that I can figure things out, and so maybe I'm not going to be very good at the first time, but I'm going to get it. I'm going to learn and I'm going to get it. And I think that's what football is all about. So I always had a feeling that if you try harder than the guy next to you, and you're willing to sacrifice more than the person next to you, so you're willing to stay longer hours, you're willing to get hit in the face harder, then things always work out. You're playing the odds. The odds are that if you work harder, you're going to know the play and you're going to make, because you're talking about 1 or 2 plays per game. I mean, that's what separates. Same thing as baseball, I guess. It's just
right.
Yeah.
Very small percentages. So when you play football, everybody can do the basics, but who can make 1 play every 20, 30 plays? Who can make 1 sack, get off 1 block or whatever? So I always thought that football was very, I always thought that was the code for football. I cracked the code. The code is this. You just have to look around, the same thing you did during RASP, the same thing you did at West Point, the same thing you do everywhere. You look to your left and right, you see who you're with in the room, and you say, okay, let's go. That guy right there is very fast in the 2 mile. So I'm going to have to try my best to beat him in the push-ups, to do whatever. But it's the same thing when you play football. You look around the room and you say, these are the strengths and the qualities of the competitors that I'm competing against, because you're always competing with people in your room when you play football. You're never competing with somebody outside. Yeah. Really, you're competing with your teammates always in football, because you're trying to get paid. That's the goal, to be a starter. So that was sort of the approach that I took in the NFL, and I thought that it would work, and I guess it ended up paying out. I guess it ended up working. And so, but it was very, very naive of me to think that at 26 I was going to be able to play. I mean, that's crazy. If somebody came up to me and said, "Hey, I'm 26 and I want to go in the NFL," and I was average bad in college, and we never won games. I would say, well, odds are stacked against you. It's not a thing that's going to happen. A miracle has to happen for you to play in the NFL.
So you come off this deployment, and like on a deployment, especially with the Rangers, like there's generally like some gym time and stuff like that, but you're not necessarily like coming out ready for a combine, right? Did you do anything to prepare yourself for that?
What's funny is that the strength coach that Ranger Regiment had at I guess they have a new, I call it gym, but I guess they have a different name in the Ranger Regiment, the gyms up there, whatever. The gym at the Ranger Regiment had a trainer, and his job was to help and assess the Rangers as they were getting for their PT, because everybody does PT individually or small groups, however you want to do PT in your platoon. There's going to be somebody that's going to guide you if you need help. I mean, this is the culture of the gyms of a Ranger Regiment. You have a personal trainer out there that is just telling you to do nothing but cleans and hand cleans and squats. Mm-hmm. So his background was football. His background was Cal and EXO. So he knew the combine training. And so him and I, we started talking. And when I said, hey, you know what, I'm gonna try to do this combine, and in Atlanta and around the 40. Then he started helping me. He started training me, and he started timing me, and he started giving me feedback. And then I would go on the weekends with my wife, and she would film me around the 40. But I would have to say that the effectiveness of all the training that I ever did was slim to none. It did not work out at all, and it was not like I was. It's the reason why I was always trying out for positions like tight end or defensive end that I had no chance in playing. I'm not powerful enough. I'm not explosive enough. I don't have the reaction. My muscles are not made compact, and so the training that I was doing was completely wrong. But through Philly and through the Steelers, I found out that I was going to be playing tackle, and tackle was a better position for me.
Yeah.
And then the only adjustment was just to gain weight. But the cardio, because you're playing 80 plays, you don't ever come out. So it doesn't matter if you can bench 500 pounds once. Can you do it 80 times?
Right.
And so the push up, the squat, I mean, things that have endurance into them are way more beneficial for an offensive lineman.
Yeah.
So being able to, play a game 3 hours and play the first play like the last one, that was my advantage. That's the only thing that I had going for me, is the fact that I had incredible cardio for an NFL player.
So you go to the combine, you get picked up by Philadelphia, but then you get. How did it happen that you got scouted by Pittsburgh?
Because we played a preseason game against each other. So
Okay.
in the NFL, you play preseason games, and for our third preseason game, we played the Steelers. And then when I played against the Steelers, they saw me and they were intrigued by it. And I think Pittsburgh has a history of selecting players that have military backgrounds or that served. Pittsburgh is the veteran population in Pittsburgh is a huge component.
Oh, interesting.
I mean, it is I think it was at one point the highest concentration of Vietnam veterans in the U.S.
Oh, wow.
And so the Steelers are very aware of who is their fan base, and they knew that there's a lot of veterans, and so I think they've always tried to cater in that aspect, which is surprising because I would have never thought Coach Tomlin was not. I mean, I knew that I was going to I knew I was going to get a shot in the NFL because back in 2014, the NFL was so popular, and the military was so popular in the NFL that they just loved it. I mean, every commercial for every beer was all military. So the coaches were always on in the military. So I thought, one of these coaches is going to give me a chance, and so that's who I thought was going to give me a chance. Somebody like the Harbaugh brothers, they're super pro-military. There's thousands of coaches that Chip Kelly with the Philadelphia Eagles, he was a big pro-military guy. But the Steelers weren't. But then I found out that the fan base is a huge. They're very pro-military, and it has its links regarding the war in Vietnam. You got Pennsylvania, you got people from Ohio. It's either you go to the mills or you go to war. You get drafted or you enlist. And so the city was a very cool transition into civilian life because so many people from a different generation that was Vietnam had gone through it, and you can have a lot of people to talk to regarding all your struggles coming out of the military.
And Pittsburgh fans are passionate. I mean, a week ago we had one of the first Ranger JTACs on, Eddie Chavez, and he mentioned on the show what a huge Steeler fan he was. So
yeah. It's a lot of passion of being a Steelers, Philly. There's fan bases that are very, very proud of their team, and they're truly devoted to following the season, the players and whatnot. I mean, I live here in Miami now. In Miami, as soon as they lose a game, everybody goes to the beach. They could care less what happens in the rest of the season. But not in Pittsburgh, not in Cleveland, not in the cities.
They go to bars and drink themselves into stupors, right? So you played your first year in 2015. What was that like for you? I mean, you're this kid from this tiny Spanish town, right? Rota, Spain. And I know soccer is big and soccer draws these massive crowds, but now you're playing American football. And what was that like for you? What was it?
It felt very awkward and weird because nobody ever knew who I was. And so I was always when you meet somebody, you can categorize people really quick, right? Oh, he's so-and-so from Texas. His dad's a rancher. He likes to drive big trucks. Oh, he's from California. He likes rock climbing. He drives a Subaru. Et cetera, et cetera. But when you got somebody who's from Rota Naval Station and a very difficult last name to pronounce, he has an accent, but you don't know exactly what type of accent it is. It's very difficult to categorize, and so I never felt that people realized just how surreal this whole thing was for me. The fact that not only was it improbable that I was older, but the fact that I come from a place where people would always talk to me about Hall of Fame coaches and games and players and this, and I had no idea.
You were not from the traditional NFL pipeline.
Right. I was not from the traditional, but by now I'm a professional actor. Now I can get into any group of people, and I can, I've done this so many times, already that I can, whatever it is they need me to do, I can do it. I know how to survive in social settings now, and so
Right.
But I think Coach Tomlin was the only one that realized that I was a little odd duck in the group, and the things that I would say and the things that I was interested in were a little peculiar.
Right, and it's funny because I never even thought about it, but for kids growing up who play football, they probably watch football, and they probably they'll know who, like, Walter Payton or Bear Bryant, who these people are, but you didn't grow up in the culture at all. Like,
no,
it was
zero,
all
nothing.
new to you. Yeah.
No, nothing. Or the stadiums. I didn't know which stadiums were. This is Green Bay. This is Lambeau.
Yeah.
Okay. It didn't register at all. I was always very worried about making it. That's that. I was in that RASP mode. It was. I was at RASP for 8 years.
Right.
Never relaxing. Never
everyday selection.
Everyday selection. That's literally that's how it is. Because that's how the NFL works. You have 53 players, and then they're bringing a roster up to 90. And then now you're competing every single year with 40 more players into the roster. So every year they're doubling the roster, and then you have to compete against them.
Yeah.
And they always take the best. So it is a constant competition mode that does take a little bit of the joy away from it all. And you're not living through it. Now you live through it. When you retire and you can look back, then you can say, like, oh wow, yeah, that is crazy. Now I'm from Rhode Island. People call me Big Al. It's not even my name. Al,
yeah.
Like that's not who I was at all. Or but it is what it is. I mean, it was an amazing experience. To be able to experience those stadiums and the passion that people have for a game. I could never see myself sitting down in the stands for 3 hours, freezing, paying $40 a beer,
right?
Barely seeing, but people do it,
Yeah.
And so it was awesome.
But you mentioned this competition and how you're constantly competing for your position. But for the years that you played after that first year, you started every single game, right?
Right, but I'm undrafted, so you're not coming from when you come into the NFL, you have different status. If you're a first round pick, you're the golden child. The organization did a lot of research to select you, so the organization's name is at stake with your performance.
Right.
So you're gonna get 1,000 chances. You're for sure gonna play. Your money's guaranteed. But when you're undrafted, you're trying out. You're trying out for the team every year, so they have you for cheap. They have your rights, and then you can play. You can try your best, but at the end of the day, they're always trying to replace you with a player that they think is better.
Right.
So as an undrafted player, you're fighting, you're clawing. I mean, you're on the go the whole time. You cannot go down. I mean, that's the reason why I never even missed a game, because I couldn't go down. If I went down, somebody else would go back behind me and take my job.
Yeah. How did the other players, did they care that you were a veteran, a combat veteran, a former Ranger? Did that play? Were people interested in that part of you?
No, I mean, very few knew. I mean, a lot of times they say something like veteran, it's like, they're associated with issue. They're associated, they want to know PTSD. They want to know you kill somebody. That's all they care about.
Right.
That's the things that are very
surface level
in their heads.
Right.
But the thing is that I was one of my teammates that I have my entire time in Pittsburgh was from Stanford. He was an immigrant from his parents were immigrants from South Africa. And he grew up very close to Fort Lewis, so he knew a little bit about the military. And he was obviously went to Stanford, so he's very, very smart, and he understands the geopolitical situation of the United States, and it's interesting to hear from people. And he was very interested in hearing what a veteran thought about the war in Afghanistan, because we were still fighting the war. We were fighting the war the whole time we were together.
Right.
So a lot of times people just stop covering. They just stop talking about it. But for him to have the firsthand knowledge of what I thought was Afghanistan and why did it not end up becoming a victorious campaign that veterans can feel proud of, it was very interesting. So he was very, very interested in that aspect. And then my position coach, who was a Hall of Fame coach, he was from Pennsylvania, and he always felt the same he felt that call of duty because he thought he was going to get drafted in Vietnam. And so being from Scranton, growing up watching the movie The Deer Hunter, it was just sort of
right.
like the same thing that I talked about earlier. You want to serve, you want to be a man, you want to be out there. So he was also very interested. But outside of that, you could tell that there was a complete lack of understanding, not just from a geographic standpoint of where things are, but of the complexity behind it.
Right.
It was not like you could just drop bombs and carpet bomb everything in front of you and then stop.
Right.
Put an American flag, and then continue to go to the next village. It wasn't like that at all.
Yeah. One of the things that, so I'm not a football fan in terms of, I watch the Super Bowl with friends, but you did come into my awareness, I think was it 2020 or like 2020, when you wore Alwyn Cash's name on your jersey, because, there was this ground root effort, this ground root
grassroots effort.
Yeah. Thank you. This grassroots effort, along with a couple of Congress people, I think, to get Alwyn Cash the Medal of Honor, and not many people knew about it. Can you tell us how that came about for you? Because it did bring some awareness, I feel like.
Right. So I think that during that year, it was COVID year #1, I think. So we started with it was empty stadiums, and we were allowed to use our platforms to sort of highlight injustices that we thought were worthy of a cause. And my brother-in-law, who's a tremendous historian, lover of the military, he pointed me out this story, and he said, "Man, this guy's been waiting to get a Medal of Honor, for I forget how many years, like 10 years or something like that, and just it never gets the attention that it deserves." And then when you read this story, you're like, "What? This is crazy! This is insane! What?" And so I thought it was a very interesting. I mean, I never thought that putting his name in the back of my helmet was going to get as much attention. But obviously, because of controversial issues in my background and with the Steelers and this movement that was going on in the NFL, it got the attention. And then he got the Medal of Honor the same year, which is surreal. It was incredible. Yeah. But I think that the opportunity that I had to talk to people that were serving with him, his unit, and his family, and how much his actions resonated in the community was incredible. I mean, small town America, everybody in this town knew about him. He was a legend in that town. And I think that when you're part of that community and you have somebody who's done something like that, it brings an incredible amount of pride, and legitimate pride. Not, a singer came from my town. It's like, no, this type of character came from this town. This is who we are, and it puts you on the map in a very interesting way. So. I was very humbled and honored to have come across his story, and I was very, very excited, obviously, when he got the Medal of Honor, because it was so deserving.
Yeah.
And also, I was even they were actually when they were renaming the post, I said, man, it'll be amazing if they called for old Fort Benning, Fort Cash, just as a suggestion, obviously, but so amazing story. And very, very cool that I was able to use my football platform as a veteran, I guess, to bring some light to his story.
Yeah, no, it was, like I said, you really came into my awareness. And I know that, just to give, it was Dan Crenshaw and Michael Waltz and Stephanie Murray who really kind of spearheaded a lot of that. And then a lot of the Gold Corps guys, on Twitter, it was just this grassroots thing where people were trying to make this happen. Even I think his battalion commander was trying to get it upgraded, because when he wrote the initial award, he couldn't interview anybody because they were all sort of they were all out of it, Later, when he found out what had happened, he was the one, even though he wrote the initial award, tried to get it upgraded.
Right, exactly. And I think there's some bureaucracy thing where you have to wait 10 years or whatnot for the consideration and whatnot. So but amazing, at the end of the day, let's make it about his story. If you never heard it, it's surreal.
Yeah, it definitely, you owe it to yourself to look up his story. It's incredible. So, you played was it 7 years?
I was in the NFL for 8 years, but I was playing for 7 because the first year was a practice squad year. So I was a tackling dummy for practice my first year in the NFL. And then after that, I was able to play the games.
And that includes the Pro Bowl, which is pretty prestigious, right?
No, the
No?
football is not prestigious at all. None of these
No?
awards, everything becomes subjective. Nah.
Okay.
I've always one of the things about American culture that I've always that I've always loved has been debates about Kobe and Michael Jordan. You know, who's better? And in any circumstance, you'll find. I mean, even now, the media television for American football or sports in general is exactly just that. It's that argument as to who's better, who's this, who's that, and this subjective conversation leads to names that get mentioned. I think that the Pro Bowl is that. But I think if you know football, if you know the game of football, if you're just not lying to yourself about what it is, then you start realizing that the offense, the quarterback, the magic that's in the room is going to make the players better. You know, you cannot put a player on a terrible defense and expect them to get sacks. This is not going to happen. You know, to throw the ball a lot quicker than the defender's going to be able to get them. So I played with incredible players. I was with Le'Veon, I was with Antonio Brown, I was with Ben Roethlisberger. So we had an incredible offense, and usually that's what happens. You shine because everybody around you is so good. Just kind of the same thing as Ranger Regiment or 10th Mount. That has been a theme of my career, that I've always had very, very talented people around me that have made my story almost a little unbelievable at times. But the fact that I went to the Pro Bowl is silly. It's just the weirdest time, of insecurities of all the players, or whether they're worthy to be there or not, is very, very funny.
Very humble answer, and we appreciate it. And what were some of your greatest moments, if you know,
in the NFL? In the NFL?
Yeah, in the NFL, yeah.
My greatest moments. So when I was going through Ranger school, through the NFL, I was also going to business school at Carnegie Mellon. And Carnegie Mellon was an incredible institution that was fully civilian. So the transformation from being somebody who had never left the gates of the military until the age of 26 to becoming a civilian in a city went through a moment where I was in a classroom, never thinking that I was going to make it in the NFL. But sitting in a classroom learning what America is, that is not involving camo uniforms or B-17s.
Right.
It's just learning how American business works.
Right.
What are the foundation and the principles that make this country go? And then you start learning a lot about capitalism, and you learn about what the free markets. And I had a teacher who had served for Reagan, has served for Margaret Thatcher, has served for many, many administrations. Around the time of the McCarthyism, when communism was in the institutions. And so he was 98 years old. His name was Alan Meltzer. He passed away the day of our final exam, and we got all A's. And I remember thinking about, MBAs, right? Like, so I'm paying this much money and for an MBA, and then I just got to sit and listen to this 98-year-old man talk for as long as he could talk. Sometimes it'll be 30 minutes, sometimes 45 minutes. And then he passed away, and there was no even testing or anything. I was like, what kind of course is that? Then when you examine what he was saying in that class, you think to yourself, that was the most insane privilege that I've ever had in my entire life.
Yeah.
To listen to a man who was combating against the ideology of communism and the Cold War, which the Cold War became a huge theme in my life as I started to learn about the way that things have shaped this country, especially because that's the most recent period of time that we got out of. And to listen to him talk was a crazy moment, to hear him say, everything in America is about management of expectations. This concept and this theme of management of expectations. If you're doing business with somebody and you can expect something, then you can manage the expectations and you can create a business. So everything is about this Judeo-Christian value of treating others like you want to be treated. It derives exactly from that, and that's the foundation of business and everything. You create trust, and everything around it is created. Everything is just like the concept of money, the concept of credit, the debt. Everything is just made up and it boils down to this management of expectations. So very, very, very enlightening moment for me, being able to go to Carnegie Mellon and fully understand, the why of it all. When you chase the money all the way to its foundation, there's not an evil creature guarding it behind it. It's just our trust, and
Right,
this
our
whole
faith
system.
in the system.
Our faith in the system, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So that was the moment of like, okay, I'm now a civilian. I now understand how the world works. The military is not always going to get what it wants. And I think I was able to pair that up with the only thing that I think I got from the military academy from West Point in terms of these sort of lessons, which was the relationship between the military and the civilians. The civil military relationships is a staple of America, is a staple of how we do, not only how our military is designed and its purpose, but also how we run politics in this country. So to put all those three pieces together was very, 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 very cool. As I was playing games and seeing it all play out, and thousands and millions of dollars and ad revenue for the NFL and stadiums, cars, this, that. You're seeing it all. You're seeing the whole magic of the country working towards its goals. So that was a very cool moment. Alan Meltzer, Carnegie Mellon.
Did you, when you were in the NFL, did you feel as though, one of the things we talk about a lot in the military is that deep sense of camaraderie and brotherhood, amongst your unit. Did you feel that on your NFL teams, or was it more individual?
It's more individual, but when you play offensive line, you depend on each other incredibly. For all the success and failure of your actions, there has to be somebody that works with you or that allows you to happen. So in offense, you have to work in sync. And I got a chance to play with the same offensive line for 7 years. So I felt a lot of the same, care and camaraderie between the offensive lineman and then, your platoon when you're eating an MRE in the side of the hill.
Sure.
Very, very, very similar.
And then how did your NFL career sort of wind down? When did you decide that, because you were still going strong when you left? No,
the body starts breaking down. You get to levels, and all these things are taught, and they're not a secret. When the testosterone in males starts going down, it's roughly around 33 years old. That's when you peak. And then after that, the body is not the same. Because I was so eager to never let anybody take my position, I also took a lot of snaps over the years. And then I had a lot of injuries that I had to play through because I couldn't let anybody take my spot. I just always had that mentality. So the body started becoming started showing signs of old age. And then it was a matter of asking myself, do you have enough to continue to play? Do you have enough to quit? And would you forgive yourself if you got a major injury that would affect your quality of life for the rest of your life?
Right.
You couldn't go on a 5-mile run anymore, shirtless in South Beach. Is it worth it? And then you cannot argue against a pragmatic decision. You just can't. It's a money question. First of all, the NFL. You're not playing in the NFL. To have thousands of followers on your social media accounts. You're playing football to make money.
Right.
That is the only reason why people are playing in the NFL. That's the only reason why people love it, and it has so much appeal behind it. It changes your life.
Yeah.
And so when I did the financial things that I wanted to do, and I analyzed and I looked at the state of my body, then I didn't want to be playing football if I wasn't kicking ass.
Right.
If I wasn't coming off the ball, if I wasn't playing at my best, I didn't want to play football just to say that I was playing football.
Right.
I don't want to get an injury at 35, a torn ACL, and then have damage on my knee. And you gotta remember that when you play offensive lineman, I was 350 pounds. If you quit playing and you don't immediately start shedding weight, you will be in the 400s within 2-3 years.
Right.
Because your metabolism is slowing down. So you're going to gain a lot of weight. And then heart failure is next. And then you're going to have all these things, but you're not going to live very long, because your body's 500 pounds. So mobility was huge for me, maintaining my mobility, being able to run, being able to do push-ups. If there's a war tomorrow, I got my RPFT in and I'm in. There's nothing that's preventing me from doing anything. And so I wanted to preserve that. I had a good run. Felt that the experience that I had were almost getting to a point that was too much. Going from one team to the next and always living in that uncertainty when there was no need to just seemed like not a very smart decision for me.
Yeah. And so did you have a plan? Because you had gotten your MBA, and then did you have a plan when you left the NFL? Did you know exactly what you wanted to do, where you wanted to go?
I had the same plan that everybody has in the military when they're going to get out and everything's going to work out. And it's so easy.
Right.
And my cousin told me I'm going to buy a pickup truck and a lawnmower and I'm going to be a millionaire landscaper. It was just like that. I said, I'm going to go to Wall Street and I'm going to work as an investment banker, or I'm going to, whatever. You throw out a thing that somebody told you to make a lot of money and it's very easy.
Right.
But then I started realizing that life was not for me. There's no way that I could sit around environments like banking environments or business environments. If you're not born to be a businessman, business becomes very, very difficult. Very, very difficult.
And you're if you're not a merchant, if you don't know how to collect money from people, it's very, very difficult. And so for me, I started realizing that I was not very good at either handling people's money or collecting people's money, and so that limits your business options to basically none. You know what I mean? Like you're not gonna find success if you don't have that drive behind you. So I have 4 kids. They're little. I didn't want to spend a lot of time away from them just to be able to start another career that would, you're chasing out at this point, you're chasing things that are not even making you happy in any sort of way. You're trying to put more pins on your uniform,
Yeah.
You're maxed, what else would you want? But the problem is that you're 35 or when I retired, I was 34, what are you going to do? You got to do something, And so, just like in the military, the first year is very difficult, very, very hard. I told myself, I've done this before. I got out of the military. I've already gone through this. You go through the FOMO. When I was in the NFL, the platoon that I was in was deployed, and they were, taking names everywhere. And I was like, oh my God, I'm here.
Right.
Wearing these tight clothes, sweating on top of other men, and I could be deployed right now in Kona or like, oh my God, and so you get rid of the FOMO. Yep, not playing on Sundays is not happening anymore. I'm not going to be, eating breakfast with people every morning and sharing stories about what we saw last night. Now what's going to happen is that I'm going to try to find something to keep me busy, so the kids see me working, something that fulfills me, find a new purpose, and so it took me almost a year and a half. And then I came into farming. Farming became something that I did not know was available here in Miami, where I decided to move after the NFL. And I picked up farming, and now I'm a farmer. So
That's awesome.
that's been what I've been doing for the last year.
What crops?
Tropical fruits. So here in Homestead, there's actually a military base down here in Homestead.
Yeah.
There's a specific microclimate that never freezes or subtropical. And so you have the ability to grow a lot of tropical fruits that are very, very rare, and that they tend to go bad within 3 to 5 days, which limits competition from Central America or other countries that can ship them. So there's a huge demand for this type of tropical fruits in the vegan community, for example. We spend a lot of money for a Wagyu steak. What does a vegan spend money on? A vegan spends money on a soursop or on a very rare fruit that goes bad really quickly, and you must have through online, that you can only sell online business, be delivered to your house. So that's the industry that I got into, and it's been incredible, amazing transition. Yeah, it's the best. Farming in the military, like this. You know what I mean? Like they should make a law, you know, at ACAP that every single veteran goes into farming. Because it is. I really think it's the reward, you know, for being a soldier. You know, when you're a soldier, you should be rewarded with being a farmer afterwards.
Do you do wholesales to like restaurants or some sort of retail? Like, how does it work?
I'm a horrible businessman. I'm going to preface that, you know, with that. I'm terrible, but I sell mostly to online retail businesses that then sell to customers online.
Okay.
And I also sell to local distributors and local restaurants. So when I bought the farm, it was organic. It was an organic farm. And I did not know anything about the organic world or even agriculture as a whole. And so when I started researching, you know, sort of the landscape of the organic industry, then I started, you know, honing in to who sort of the customers are and who's interested in buying those products. And it happens to be something that is growing very quickly, and the demand out, you know, there's not enough supply for the amount of demand, so the prices are ridiculous, you know. And so it's a very interesting business, and I'm learning so much about all the different things that you can do at a farm. You know, you can start growing gourmet mushrooms, you can start doing chickens, you can start anything that makes money and that people want. You can grow it, and so that's the beauty behind it.
That's amazing.
It's really interesting that you say how veterans should be tied to farming, how there should be this thing, because the veterans that we have talked to who have gone into farming have been very content. They've loved
100%.
They've loved
100%.
what they've found.
That's what Maximus wanted to do in Gladiator. All he wanted to do was go back to his farm in Hispania and caress the wheat.
Yeah.
You know, you're by yourself. You're putting things in perspective. You're doing something that matters. You're doing something that, you know, you're not making emails. You're making food. And that there's something to it. And now for me it's even more fascinating because as I continue this journey of American exploration, now I get to hang out with, you know, vegans from Brooklyn, you know what I mean, who are the only people and so they have completely different ideas and completely different culture, but that you get to know them and they're super interesting people, they're super cool, you know. And so now, you know, I got a little disc golf thing, you know, at the farm. So, you know, when they come pick up the food, they can play a little bit. You know, it's interesting. You know, the different segments of the population that I would have never known had I always stayed in the military and in the NFL.
Right, it's fascinating.
And what else are you into nowadays? I mean, I see the squat rack behind you, so you just stay in shape.
Yeah, so I give up on going to the gym. I think that was a transition that. I can no longer go to a gym where I got people looking at themselves in the mirror the whole time. I look at myself in the mirror by myself, but I'm not, you know, like the LA Fitness types, you know, where it's like 30 teenagers on a bench, hoarding the bench, making videos, being loud, you know. I was like, no, I'm getting old, you know. And then it becomes harder to work out, you know, and you know that it's a commitment, you know. It takes an inner energy to say, come on, you know, we're going to work out today. We're going to get it done. We're going to try to work out at least 3-4 times a week, you know, because I used to work out 4 hours a day. And so when you stop working out, you start losing all your muscle mass, you become achy. And so I try to work out. Obviously, that's always a theme that has been in my life. I fish a lot. Fishing is my passion. I've fished since I came to the United States, and I realized that in America they got stores like Bass Pro Shops where they have 5 aisles of different plastic worms, and people buy them. You know, people buy them. People buy specific color, specific shape plastic worms. So there must be something interesting behind it, and that's what I like to do. I like to fish. I like to be outside in at the farm, and then, you know, whatever things I can find here in Miami that are interesting, like join a softball league. You know, I never played softball in my life. I know that baseball is a huge thing in Cuban culture. The Cuban community in Miami is amazing. It's so unique. It's a tiny community. You know, it's the only city you can find Italians. You can find Italian Americans everywhere. You know, you can find Italian restaurants all over the place. But the Cuban community here in Miami is so, you know, it's overwhelming that to learn from their culture is amazing. Their journey's over. You know, their grandparents over. From Cuba in the 50s and 60s, picking up, things like baseball and playing baseball nonstop. Anything and everything that is, community is something that I'm very interested in.
A lot of you mentioned your professor, the lecturer, a huge anti-communist sentiment in the Cuban community.
Oh yeah.
Oh, crazy.
Yeah.
But you know what? That is also a theme that has been is reappearing now, I guess, a little bit in my life. I'm Spanish, so I speak Spanish. I come over to the city of Miami. Most of the immigrants that came from Cuba are of Spanish descent. They can track their descendants to a city, and just like the Italians can do in New Jersey and New York. Spain has a communist socialist government right now that my whole entire family lives in. And then Cuba, which is, I'm closer to a totalitarian regime than I am to Jacksonville. When you're in South Florida, you're out there. You're out there. You're just completely far, so removed from the rest of the United States. And the conflict of the Cuban Missile Crisis, speaking of the Cold War that interests me so much, was we had nuclear bombs pointed at the United States. This is crazy. Like, the only time that anything has ever threatened America was from this place of Cuba. So the tensions between Cuban Americans in Cuba is super, super fascinating. You cannot talk about Fidel. You cannot travel to Cuba. Only New York Cubans are the ones that go there. But the ones from here, they say, we don't want to give a single dollar to the communist regime.
Yeah.
But I'm fascinated. I love history, and Spain and Cuba have so much history together. And Cuba was so instrumental for the independence of the United States, and have been allies for most of its history that, for me, I feel like it's almost like there has to be a reconciliation between the two. I don't think there's anybody in Cuba who's happy to be under the regime.
Right.
I asked a previous guest on the show, Rick Prado, for cigar recommendations, and he was very adamant, like, I don't buy Cuban cigars because I will not give them my money.
Right. So they go Dominicans, but Cuba and the United States have had, such a interesting history. I didn't realize that the history between Cuba and the United States was so mind-boggling. Crazy. You always think that the history of the United States is more shaped by England and more shaped by maybe the Dutch out in New York City or whatnot. German immigrants that constitute the biggest migration group. Italians, but Spain and Cuba have had a huge legacy, especially in the South and the West of the United States. I just came from California. I was there this weekend, and I was in San Luis Obispo. And you go to the mission, from 1772 or 1702, and you're like, the Spanish were here, the Mexican War. There's been an exchange. The Florida flag is the Spanish Empire flag. With the Red Cross. It's kind of crazy. You're like, it's very, very odd. And so Cuba now is a place that is getting my attention. But I do feel that I cannot have any conversations about Cuba with anybody from Miami because they have such strong feelings about it. I guess if you want to have those conversations, you have to go to New York, and then you have to have the conversations with the New York Cubans who maybe are a little more open-minded to share, what potential. I want to hear from somebody tell me a potential story or an angle towards reconciliation, because I would love to go to Cuba at some point in my life. But I think it would be amazing to go fishing there. It'd be amazing to explore. I'm in the farming, tropical farming world, and Cuba is the most beautiful farming land in the world. It'd be incredible just to visit. To see how they grow the mamey, which is one of the fruits that I grow and that is extremely popular in Cuban culture.
Alejandro, this has been like an amazing interview and so much fun to talk to you. Is there anything you want to tell us that you want to promote, or anything where people can find your produce, or anything in general that you want to put out there into the world that people should know about?
No, I just think that the only thing that I do wish to promote is one of the things that I've always felt about America that is very special is that patriotism is not nationalistic. It's always been about gratitude. And the military has been able to have an incredible relationship with its people, where there's been no aristocracies that feed officers or generals into the military. It's always been the common man. And I think as we go into this all voluntary service sort of model, I think that the military should always take a very high place in our society when it comes to the state of it, what it means to serve, and obviously the encouragement and the participation of younger generations. Because sometimes I do think that the recruiter numbers of the military, are the only things that keep me up at night a little bit. In terms of how is the United States going to be in the next 100 years, and how is that going to affect the life of my kids? So there's only one message, just to encourage all the youngins out there to make sure that they can show their patriotism by gratitude and serving.
Yeah. We have a couple questions. M. Corbin, thank you very much. If you could put yourself in any battlefield from history, which one would it be and why?
Oh, wow. What an amazing question. What an amazing question. Okay. So there's one battle that my father obviously always told me about, battles of the Spanish Empire. And there was one battle that is very, very significant. The Spanish they don't promote war like the British. They don't write about or the French. It's humility is the number one thing. But the stories are insane. So the Battle of Lepanto, that is Lepanto, was a battle between the Holy Roman Alliance against the Ottomans for the control of Europe. So the Ottomans were going to invade Europe basically and push out. And it was a naval battle that took place in a very small strait. It was something like 600 ships. So 600 ships, they have sails, and they're maneuvering. And so they had a marching order of battle between the ships and the flagships. I think seeing that, or being a drone, a 4K drone, watching a naval battle of 600 ships around the year 15 whatever, I think that would be completely mental. And then the other battle that I think will be that I think I would have liked to see just for its significance and the scale would probably be Stalingrad. I think Stalingrad would have been from the German side. You always see from the Russian side. Not horrible to say, but just the curiosity standpoint. General Paulus and what it's like to go through the attrition that the Nazis and the Wehrmacht went through in Stalingrad.
Yeah. Also, thank you very much, Corbin. How much have you used to guide your decision-making process? How much have you used? I'm not sure what he meant, but how much have you used to guide your decision-making process? Corbin, if you can add to that, we'll go to Jim B's question. And I know you don't like being controversial, so feel free to answer this or not answer it, however you want. Can you provide some insights on the behind the scenes of the anthem kneeling drama?
Yeah, the internet, man, it was the media. I think the media around that time was becoming somewhat like social media. It was about viral moments and viral images, and images and headlines was the goal. I mean, if you could get an image in a headline, then it goes viral, then it gets passed, and that was the business model of big media companies. So I felt that it was not good to be caught up in the snowball that it is. The new media model where things go viral and then everybody's talking about it, and it gives so much amazing debate between people. Stand up, kneel, for the anthem. So that part is not comfortable. You don't want to be on a wave crashing, just tumbling around.
Yeah.
Right. But then, I think the thing that I got out of it, a lot of people always stop me. Oh, yeah, they got for the anthem. I'm so used to people talking about how tall I am all the time that I have to have uncomfortable, awkward conversations throughout my day, nonstop, and answer, why am I so tall? Do I play basketball? Blah, blah, blah. But now, sometimes every now and then, somebody talks about the anthem and whatnot. And I guess as I reflect on my American experience, I do think that when you compare yourself with China or Russia, you want to say to yourself, how would the Chinese or the Russians would have handled that situation, and would you want to live in China or Russia? And he said, no, you don't want to live in China or Russia. You would much rather live in Brooklyn or in Berkeley, than China or Russia. So
Right.
I think at the end of the day, it allowed me to experience the freedom of the diversity in opinions, and to have the entitlement of saying, I can do in this country what I want. You know what I
Right.
mean? And nobody can really stop me from doing X, Y, or Z, and I don't feel any repercussions. And if I want to put the American flag in the garage while I'm pumping, to Bad Bunny, and I'm looking at myself in the mirror, that's what I want to do. You know what I mean? It's a really cool feeling at the end of the day to be able to exercise your freedoms, even if it's with your peers or your the pressure of the media or movement and whatnot. It's a cool sort of experience.
Yeah. Do you, out of curiosity, do you think that it's a sign of the times at all? And look, I think you put it perfectly, and that this is America and you're free to do what you want. Do you think it's a sign of the times where somebody who refuses to kneel, like maybe Copernic or whatever, they get lionized and sort of this sort of glow and this hero thing because they won't kneel, and then somebody who has that respect and does, how it becomes maybe this very controversial thing?
No way. You understand the signal from the noise. That's what they used to say all the
Sure.
time in the Ranger Regiment. The signal from the noise. I mean, most people, and again, I was learning all this. All this was happening as this 98-year-old professor
Right.
was explaining to me, the secrets of America versus
Right.
Russia, and it's crazy. So you have an understanding that everybody in America has to work. We're Americans are very hardworking people, and people
Right.
want to make economical decisions all the time, and they want what's best for their families and for their well-being, and that's what most people want. Otherwise, we wouldn't have America. Otherwise, we would not have a market cap of trillions of dollars, and we would not be the most powerful country in the world. So we are
Right.
made up of very like-minded people that are all trying to make it. We're all
Right.
trying to buy a new F-150
Right.
and go on vacation to Cape Cod. Everybody's trying to do the same things.
Right.
And so I never had any doubt that the underlying majority of people, have no issues with somebody exercising their freedoms. But I did know that obviously the cliques lie on the crazy minorities that do something that is exceptional.
Right.
So it's a story that sells, so it sold.
Right.
And it was a debate that sold in the media quite a bit. But in the meantime, nothing really was changing. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Nothing really was changing either way. And again, everybody's trying to make their best economical decisions
Right.
to pursue their happiness.
And at the end of the day, you're kind of an innocent caught up in all this. You're just like doing what your heart is telling you to do, not trying to really make a statement, not trying to be political. Yeah.
Yeah. No, America gave me everything. America, the flag, everything is giving me everything. There's no way I'm living here in Miami, Florida right now. If it wasn't for the service.
Yeah.
And I think that sometimes the symbols, they're silly in an existential way. It's a cloth of colors, and what is it? Yeah, but you need those symbols a little bit in life to give yourself a little bit of meaning, and those are the very powerful things that, I don't have a trophy in my garage of the Afghan campaign and how we liberate a country, acquire new territories or whatever. I got to sit there with the feeling that, I did what I thought what was best for my country, and I did it in the best possible way. And sometimes, looking at the flag, makes me feel like that's one of my guys. I'm home, and it's kind of like good to see it. You know what I mean? You like to drive around the United States, seeing American flags everywhere. It's a flag that makes you feel proud to be an American. Proud to be yourself. You're not American and I'm better than everybody else. It's just I'm American, and this is awesome. It's awesome to be in America. I'm gambling my way into whatever dreams I have.
Yeah,
it's awesome.
So Corbin, thank you. How much have you used history to guide your decision-making process?
I don't know if I love military history. Military history is my passion. But I don't think that it can apply to things such as the decision making and the first time you get ambushed, the first time you're gonna hit an ID. I don't think you're thinking about, Ulysses S. Grant, would have told his, buddy Sherman, to flank for no. You're thinking what I got to do right now. What does common sense tell me? And how I think your personality is a much better indicator that has guided my decisions. And I think me being really impatient, I've always been a guy that is always at a very high pace, and making quick decisions as opposed to being a thinker. So my love for history, I don't think is ever applied. I've never tried to compare myself in battles, with other great, what would Napoleon would have done? There's no tactics involved. You know what I mean? I'm not commanding troops out there.
And last question. Thank you, Luis Vasquez. What meals did you eat both as a Ranger and in the NFL?
Meals? What meals? Okay, so when I was in the NFL, I was very insecure about my weight, and then I wanted to be as heavy and big as possible in order to overcome the lack of technique that I had. And so the plan that I came up with was to eat the worst things, but that I could eat the most of. So I was only looking at caloric intake. And I remember that the easiest thing for me that I could eat forever was Crave cereal, because they gave those in those boxes when you're in Afghanistan, and they had those cardboard boxes where you would just dig through like a little rat for the best cereal. And I remember Crave cereal as being the one that I could die of a coma from eating Crave cereal. So that's the food that I use the most to gain as much weight as soon as I left the Rangers.
Yeah. And in the Army, it was MRE number 11.
What was the number 11? I forgot what the
I don't know either.
Yeah.
I was just throwing it out there for fun.
Yeah. Did you guys, did you miss Rippets once you got back to the civilian world and couldn't find Rippets anymore?
It's funny. I'm gonna say that I was a little bit of, I always laughed about this, but silly joke. But I was a more snobbyish in my addictions. So I was a Skull Mint.
Yeah.
Only for the most exquisite
Most sophisticated.
palates, Skull Mint. Most sophisticated, and then I was a Monster Zero.
Okay.
So I was a Monster Zero guy, or a Rockstar, sugar-free Rockstar.
Yeah.
But the Rippets, I send me the care packages and load it up with Monsters and load it up with sugar-free Red Bulls, sugar-free Rockstar. Those are the three drinks of choice.
Now, like a good infantryman, you dipped, but obviously you didn't grow up in Spain dipping Skull or Copenhagen. Where did that happen in West Point, or did that happen in 10th Mountain?
That happened in West Point the first time I'm we're doing Buckner or whatever, we're doing Beast, and it's a typical thing where they're teaching you how to do. They're going through the motions of a patrol base. And so they put you next to somebody, and you just sit in your rucksack for hours. And you're just looking out for hours, and you're sitting next to somebody, and then they pull it out and they put it in, and you say like, "What's that?" Oh, dude, it's just you'll lock in. Your time will go by so much quicker. It'll be awesome. You know what I mean? You want one? You want one? I never know, how do I do this? You put your lip out, you put it in, and you
proceeded to vomit all over yourself.
And you're vomiting like
you're
crazy.
Dizzy, you get dizzy, yeah.
And then the next day you're like, I want more.
Yeah.
I spent all my money on this.
Yeah.
More of this.
Yeah. Did you ever have an opportunity to try the Afghan, like the Niswar?
No. Because somebody told me that they had opium in it. And I was like, I think somebody, it's funny, somebody in my deployment did. And the story was that he was with an Afghan on a tower, and we had joint tower duty, and he fell from the tower.
Oh, really?
He did that thing, and he fell from the tower. No, I never tried the Nawar. No.
Yeah.
I talk like this.
Awesome. Alejandro, thank you so much. We deeply, deeply appreciate your time.
Of course. Thank you so much for inviting me on the podcast, and I wish you guys the best.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Thank you for sharing your experiences. And on Friday, we will have a pre-recorded episode for you guys with Jay. He was a team sergeant in 3rd Special Forces Group. That was an awesome interview. You guys are going to love it.
A lot of fun, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Alejandro, thank you again. and we will see you guys on Friday.